What is up, design family, and welcome to another episode of FittDesign TV. Have you ever bought something from the store or online, got it, been super excited, worn it, only to have it fall apart on you 3 washes in? Well, watch this video and you'll learn how to avoid cheap sportswear moving forward. Welcome to FittDesign TV. On this channel, we'll explore what it takes to make it as an activewear fashion brand, whilst providing tips, tricks, and actionable steps towards starting your own product line. Whether you're an entrepreneur looking to start your own brand, or just someone interested in fitness fashion, there's something for you here. There are 5 main methods that I personally look at when I'm trying to identify whether or not something is cheap or it's well made. The first way is to look at the fit and the cut of the garment. In sportswear, fit is everything. You want to make sure that you have a great fitting garment that is not too tight, not too loose, and accentuates your physique perfectly. The main teller of a poorly made garment is badly constructed patterns. Pattern is the actual shape of the garment, so a pattern will dictate how something fits on the body. For example, if you have a pair of joggers that are too tight on the thighs, but so wide on the waist and it just logically doesn't make sense, that means that the pattern was not thought through, the development was incorrect, and just overall the quality control in that garment is poor. Avoid that at all costs. The other way to tell is if you have a sizing chart on the retailer's website and the garment itself just does not follow that sizing chart at all and it does not make sense. It looks like they came from 2 different ways. For example, if the sizing chart tells you that the waist is X and the waist on the actual garment is Y, that's a red flag. Avoid that brand. They're not putting in the right quality control and they're not managing the production correctly. So that's also a major way to tell if something is a no-no. The second way is from the colors and the dyeing of the garment. A great garment will be well dyed and the color will hold on to its vibrancy very, very well. So if the color washes off after a couple washes, that's a no-no. Avoid that. It just indicates poorly dyed clothing, and that's one of the easiest ways to tell if something is just not done to the certain quality that is required. You also want to look at the colors themselves, if they're bleeding into each other. If you have a garment with a couple colors, if they're bleeding into each other, that means that the quality of the dye is also horrible. Avoid that because that's just an indicator of bad quality dye. And at the same time, if the garment says this is not machine washable, chances are the colors or the dyes that are used are also low quality and the manufacturer is trying to avoid that issue. You want to make sure that you avoid those garments. The colors are just not going to hold out over time, and the construction and quality of the garment may also follow suit and be very bad. So that could be a major indicator of a bad quality piece of sportswear. The third way is you need to look at the prints and the kind of printing application methods onto the garment. What are the different ways that the retailer or the brand is getting their logos or their trims or accessories onto the garment? If the quality of the printing is horrible, it cracks over time, it fades out over time, you'll want to avoid that. You should check out the link below for a video that we've done on the main printing methods used in sportswear. I'm sure you guys will learn a lot, and that'll give you a little bit more insight in terms of what we're referring to in this video. But really, if the prints are poor, they crack over time, they fade out, avoid that. An indicator of good quality is jacquard. It is a jacquard application method. If you look at high quality underwear like Calvin Klein, the waistband is a jacquard waistband where the logo itself is woven in. It's super robust and is usually an indicator of a bit of a higher quality garment, as opposed to kind of cheap screen printing that cracks over time. So look at the printing method. If you see something fading out in the first kind of 3-4 washes, turn away and run. You want to avoid that brand at all costs. A fourth way is to look at the fabrics and the fibers used in that specific garment. So if you look at a piece of fabric, you'll see these lines going through it. That's the weave. That's the direction of the weave. You want to make sure that that fabric has a tight weave. It's not so loose. That means that more threads were used. Similar to if you have a sheet, a kind of like a sheet for bedding, you look at the thread count. If you've ever heard the word thread count, that's kind of the threads per square area of that specific fabric. You want a tighter weave. It's going to feel silkier. It's going to be better. It's going to hang better on the body. And you also want to make sure that if you look at that garment itself, that all of the weaves are going in the same direction. So when a manufacturer wants to cut corners. The fabric piece that they lay out to cut out the different pieces of fabric. For instance, a t-shirt will have two main parts. It'll have the main body part and it'll have the sleeve part, and those will be cut from the same fabric piece. If a manufacturer is trying to give a high quality garment, you'll see that they're both going from up and down, as opposed to what may happen on a cheap garment where you have the main body going up and down, the actual weaves, but on a sleeve it's going at a 45-degree angle because that piece was twisted to optimize the usage of that fabric, and it's typically an indicator of a poor quality garment, and that'll actually have a physical impact on the garment itself. You'll find that because the weaves are a bit different, that you'll have some kind of puckering on the seams because things are not matching up correctly, and you also have kind of some fraying on the ends of the pieces or the patterns themselves because you're just going against the grain. So there's a bit of physical friction there. Also, if a garment manufacturer uses poor quality fibers, we've also discussed fibers in another episode. Highly recommend you check the link below for that video. If a garment manufacturer uses poor quality fibers, you'll want to avoid that. So you got to use a mix of synthetic and organic fibers. Organic fibers are like cotton, synthetic fibers are like nylon, because you're going to get the best of both worlds with those. You're going to get the kind of natural feel of the organic fibers and kind of the robustness of the synthetic fibers, but not all fibers are made alike. Even organic fibers nowadays, because of the mass production that has been brought upon by fast fashion brands, even actual natural fibers like cotton are not all created equal. So you want to look at manufacturers that use organic fibers or organic cottons. That will ensure a better quality cotton there, as opposed to kind of your off-the-rack cotton. Versus your synthetic fibers, again, a nylon is not as similar as an acetate. An acetate is super non-breathable, so if a manufacturer is using that as the synthetic fiber of choice, you want to avoid those because they're just not suitable, especially for sportswear. It's going to get you feeling very hot and flustered, and it's just not going to be a pleasant experience on your skin, as opposed to maybe a synthetic fiber like modal, which is very silky, it's very smooth, it's very breathable. That's a great option. So absorbing the fibers used on those garments is going to be a key indicator of whether something is good quality or it's bad quality. At the same time, you want to be looking at the weave. As I mentioned, a tighter weave is going to indicate a better quality garment. Hold them up to the light and you'll be able to compare two fabrics together. The one that lets in more light will naturally be a looser weave, which could indicate problems down the line. It's going to hang worse. You're going to want to make sure that you always have a tighter weave. It's going to indicate a better quality garment overall. The fifth and final method is from the sewing and the stitching. You want to make sure that all threads are used, lay flat on the garment, there's nothing sticking out. At the same time, you want to look at the hems of the garment, make sure that all these stitches are done in an orderly fashion. Everything is done in a very kind of calculated way. You don't have any zigzag lines where it doesn't need to be. A great way to also tell good quality stitching is to flip the garment inside out. Typically, some manufacturers will have good stitching on the outside, but all hell will rain on the inside. So you want to make sure that even the inner finishes of the stitches are also done correctly. That's an indicator that a manufacturer is going the extra route to give you good quality product. Also, a good way to tell kind of poor stitching or poor pattern methods is to look at the side seam. If a side seam is crooked or it's not quite straight, that means that the pattern was not studied correctly. That's usually an indicator of a bad garment. Avoid that at all costs. At the same time, you'll want to look at the finishing methods that are used. High quality garments usually use two main finishing methods. One is an invisible finishing method, and the other one is a bias binding finishing method. Those methods are going to give you the best possible result, and they're just going to look the cleanest, and they're going to last the longest over time. So look out for those finishing methods. It's a great visual way to tell whether a garment is kind of finished in the correct way, and it's going to give you the longevity that you're looking for out of your piece of apparel. That is a wrap, guys. Hopefully you guys have been able to learn a thing or two, and now you have a good amount of knowledge that'll help you the next time you're trying to make a purchase decision on some good quality clothing, what to avoid and what to look for. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure. It always is. If you have any questions or you have something that I've not outlined, leave it in the comments below. It's always a pleasure to engage with you guys and just to kind of have that community. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, guys, stay awesome.